Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Crypto Marketing Insights. I'm Yasha Harari. Today I'm going to talk about the HEX Crypto that is being published or launched by an effort started by Richard Hart, and he is a longtime entrepreneur in the crypto space, as well as before that he had some marketing businesses that have done fairly well. And as a result of his many years of working in or being involved in Bitcoin and being a very pro Bitcoin person, and then seeing some things about Bitcoin that apparently he didn't think was that great, he decided to launch the HEX Crypto. And um, this is not a paid ad. This is not an endorsed, sponsored thing, anything like that. And I'm not interviewing Richard in this video, so you won't see, if you're familiar with Richard's videos, you won't see his familiar face or anything else like that. I just have the logo here so you know what it looks like, and it's the one right in the middle. Right, it says, "Should you claim you're a bag of hex?" And it's the point of this video. Let's just go to that. The point of the video really is to explain to you whether or not it is worth claiming a bag of hex, right? And the answer to that really depends on you, right? So what do I mean by that? Well, have you even read the documents about HEX? Do you know anything about it? Are you aware of what it is, right? Do you know how HEX operates? Do you know what is in the contract? Do you know what is an ERC20? How does it work, right? Do you understand all these concepts? Well, if you don't, not to worry. You can find all this stuff out really quickly. I will make sure all the links are included in the description below. There is already one that you can click. That is a link to my HEX referral link. You can certainly click on that if you want to. You don't have to. You can also just go to the website directly for HEX. But if you click my link, hey, it supports the channel. Yay. But other than that, nothing. It's just there for you to get the information. Now, you don't have to click it, whatever. But if you do, thanks. Because it does support the channel and makes it possible for me to do not just videos about HEX, but videos about other things related to crypto and blockchain, etc. So if you get some value out of what I talk about in marketing, then by all means, have a click for a like or a subscribe. But if not, seriously, don't do it. I don't want your money. I don't want your clicks or likes or subscribes. I got nothing to sell you here. I'm talking to you about cryptocurrency and what you can know for yourself as a marketer. Heck, even if you're not a marketer, you should know about this. And why is it that some cryptos have better marketing than other cryptos, right? And why is it that some cryptos are more likely to succeed than other cryptos, right? And why is it that some really bad projects seem to succeed where other really good ones do not? All of that these are all things we want to look at, things that I intend to discuss on this stream. And in order to do that, I thought that the most appropriate coin to talk about these days would be the HEX Crypto, for the simple reason that, well, it's a new coin launching in a market that is well saturated at the time being, and arguably still in a long bear cycle, or in the middle of a bull that is switching around back to a bear, or who knows what kind of market temperament we are seeing at the moment. But what we do know is that there is a lot of interest in cryptocurrency in general by the people who are already in it. And unfortunately, there is not a lot of interest by people who are not yet in crypto, right? So it's ironic, but many people already in this space have kind of, they're all in, right? If they're below If they're holding bags that are heavier than they were than when they bought them, they're not particularly happy people who are in crypto, right? They're not delighted, right? They're not telling you all about the great run up of 2017 or whatever BS they, you might be hearing from other people who were fortunate enough to benefit from those things. People who bought in late 2017 and until today, unless they've actually traded well, or unless they've held well, or unless they've done whatever well, there's a good chance that they're basically at break even or even underwater, right? So, and again, yeah, if you've held, out, there's like 4 or 5 months in crypto, and maybe 6 months now, depending on how you look at the last few months. But there's basically like less than a half a year's worth of time that if you would have bought crypto, you would be underwater right now, right? If you would just bought and held, right? Now, most people don't have the stamina to just buy and held, right? But a lot of people who did and still have their Bitcoin, they might be spent. They might not have any more material assets to buy any more crypto, even if they believe in it 100%. So along comes this guy, Richard Hart, who everybody in the crypto space knows since years. And he decides, you know what, there's a lot of game theory available in a coin like Ethereum, which lets you do not just time locks on coins, right, but lets you also do things like have smart contracts that let the coins grow in interest and in value over time, right, which you cannot do with Bitcoin. There's a lot of great things about Bitcoin. I mean, there really are, right? It is probably the cryptocurrency that is most vetted by, ironically enough, government authorities, as if that matters, but it does. I mean, I know crypto was invented to kind of not be, part of their bag of sticks, but, of course, it is part of their bag of sticks. Nothing is going to get away from those guys. So when you look at, the space, right, Bitcoin has this immutability, right, in theory, although it has actually changed. So it's not really immutable. It's only immutable by social consensus of the core developers. And meanwhile, Ethereum, which is very popular as far as development goes, it is, much more feature rich than Bitcoin. It is much more capable in many ways than Bitcoin. It, in theory, has the ability to do more transactions. Although we did see, a couple of years ago when Ethereum's network was pretty much running at a standstill when CryptoKitties, went nuts in that pump of 2017. And so, no system is perfect yet, right? But cryptocurrency is a technology, and blockchain is a technology, and it's really a protocol level technology, which means much like TCP/IP, the technology that powers the internet, we have the ability, right, through cryptocurrency to keep developing these new asset classes until we find better ones, right? Until we make ones that work. And that doesn't mean we have to make 10 million different things that all suck and then try to determine which of the suckiest will be the least suckiest or something like that. No, it means we have to make an honest effort as developers, as marketers, as business people, as the people developing this actual space, to attempt to make better solutions, right, that work one way or the other better. A cryptocurrency that I have developed, its entire purpose is actually to run, to make the world greener, right? And it has a utility, and it has a use case, and it has, a certain sort of value and whatever, and all in development, already on, live nets and everything else. The reason that chain exists, again, is to contribute to the greenification of the earth. It has nothing to do about the price action. It's not a price-based coin or anything like that yet. right? So coins have different purposes. Coins serve different roles. They meet certain needs in the marketplace, and everyone's happy and goes home and does their thing. Um, so this hex cryptocurrency, right? Well, why am I taking such a long time to get around to it? Well, I want to lay the background here so that you understand um, where it comes from. This notion of, why don't we just accept the coins we have? Why do we need to make new coins? Who is this guy to print money out of thin air? Why is this bag of hex thing even a thing on the internet in the crypto sphere? Why is this even to anyone's interest? Okay. And when you just look at the simple fact that human beings are competitive and ambitious, and we don't all want the same exact thing, it's completely ludicrous to think that we are all going to clamor to one and only one currency in crypto or anywhere. I mean, do every you know does everything you do involve buying dollars, selling dollars? No. Are there people who don't use dollars? Yes. Are there countries that don't use dollars? Yes. Right? How many countries don't use dollars? Pretty much all of them have their own. Right? Which country primarily uses the dollar? The United States. Great, wonderful, powerhouse, economic powerhouse of the world, whatever. Do other countries use the dollar? Sure. Is it their primary currency? No. Are they pegged to it in some way? Most yes, some not. Doesn't really matter. Is the dollar the ultimate currency? No. Right? I hope you said no, because no. Have there been currencies before the dollar? Yes. Are there likely to be currencies after the dollar? Yes. Is the United States likely to change its currency again? Yes. When I say again, I mean because the current dollar has only really been the current dollar since Richard Nixon took it off the gold standard. Right? And if you want to get all fancy about it, you can say, well, the Fed made the dollar in the early 1900s as the National Federal Reserve thing. Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah. Okay, great. Before that, they still had a thing in America, right? Money still existed. There were local banks and state banks. And yeah, you could trade dollars, right, for hundreds of years in the U.S. And they used to be backed by gold, and then they were backed by a federalized gold reserve, and then they were backed by a promissory note of gold, and then ultimately they were backed by nothing, right? Just the full faith and confidence, which basically means the United States Army, right? And all the nukes they have, and the fact that the U.S. has used them in the past. Right? No other nation has used nukes, but as many have pointed out, the United States has. Right? And so when they say that the dollar is backed by nothing, yeah, that's true except for the nukes. Right? So those count for something. And maybe they won't be backed by nukes if the U.S. is unable to pay its own bills, right, to maintain their nukes. But for now, that is not the problem. They do not have that problem, right? They do not have that situation. We have a situation where every country has its own fiat. Well, most do anyway. A couple of them use blatantly the dollar or something similar, pegged to it. And others use other things. But most countries have their own fiat. The Marshall Islands has implemented the SOV, which is actually a cryptocurrency. And it is the first nation to adopt cryptocurrency as its national fiat currency. But wait, it's fiat currency? Yes, it's a crypto and it is fiat because it is empowered by the state. It is enforced by the state. That makes it a fiat currency. And so, we have cryptocurrency in the real world being used by, yes, a tiny, tiny nation, but still a nation, right? And we have other nations that are beginning to adopt cryptocurrency one way or the other. We have education in Russia that's making every student in high school learn about blockchain and crypto. We have the same thing in France happening. We have the the government of Venezuela issuing their petro, which was a complete disaster, of course, and then basically saying that Bitcoin and Litecoin are the only accepted forms of cryptocurrency to send money to and from that country. You can send money in their bolivar to and from Venezuela. You can send money using the petro, which again nobody uses, complete failure, disaster. I don't even know if it's still running. Or you can send Bitcoin, Litecoin, and I think maybe another one, but that might be it actually. Maybe Dash, I'm not sure, I forgot. But the point is, in Venezuela, even the government has acknowledged, right, that these open, decentralized cryptocurrencies are better than whatever else is going on. And they need to start using it and being friendly with it, right? So they get it, right? And you might say, well, Venezuela is a dictatorship. Who wants to compare their economy to that? Well, okay, what about Argentina? Right? What about Chile? Right? You can tell me, oh, it's South America, blah, blah, blah. Well, there are significant economies down there, and there are many millions of people living there. And it is not a small part of the world, nor an unimportant part of the world, right? So to ignore entire continents because of your geopolitical bias is just, foolish and wrong and ignorant to say the least. So you wouldn't want to do that if you were analyzing the economy of the crypto space. And then comes around the problem that, well, Bitcoin has extremely limited transactions per second. I mean, extremely limited. So if it's this limited, how are you going to serve the entire world and still deliver on the promise of growth year over year and still have all these investors and hodlers who keep wanting higher prices? Because ultimately, that's what they're looking for the majority of them, right? We still haven't found millions and billions of people starting to use crypto for either altruistic reasons or for purely commercial reasons where they're, buying and selling using Bitcoin on their everyday, shopping or even their more expensive shopping, right? And it may never be possible to use it on your everyday shopping because if the cost of transactions is always so high when the network gets busy, even a little bit busy, there isn't a chance in heck that something like Bitcoin can actually serve the planet as the global reserve currency. And anyone who thinks it can, on chain is off the chain. Okay, and they might have to get their block examined, right? Because it is not possible to service the entire planet with a currency whose baseline can only do 7 transactions per second. I don't care how much second solution you throw at it. I really don't. Right? It's not possible. It's not fast enough. You'll never be able to process a day's worth of all the desired transactions. It would take you years to complete it. And by the time you did, and the next day of transaction would have to be processed, you're already so far in the future, you'll never catch up, right? That is one of the biggest problems with Bitcoin. Now, do I like Bitcoin? Yes. Do I think it's amazing technology? Yes. Do I think it is a good store of value? Yes. Do I think it's got a good case for utility? Depending on what? Yes. But generally speaking, no. It's horrible. It's slow. You can literally lose data on transactions when transactions don't go through. The only people really making money, right, mining Bitcoin are giant mining corporations, right, pretty big miners who have tons and tons of Bitcoin already, and they have hardware that can mine Bitcoin better than you can ever have, unless you make your own chips, in which case you're a company in China. So you basically are dependent on Chinese engineering and manufacturing to mine Bitcoin, right? Which means you are beholden to Chinese miners, whether you like it or not, in terms of your profitability in Bitcoin. Why? Because miners secure the network. Miners are they're like jury, judge, and executioner all at once, right? In Bitcoin, which in a way makes it, even though it's in theory a decentralized network, it really makes it extremely centralized, right? In a roundabout way. Why? Well, because of ASIC mining. because there are application-specific integrated circuits, right? That's what ASIC means if you don't remember, right? You need very particular hardware to mine Bitcoin. And that makes it out of price and out of reach for everyone. When I started mining Bitcoin, it literally was free. They were begging for, not begging, but they were, eager to have anybody mine, right? Back then, and you get 50 Bitcoins a block. Unfortunately, I've lost all those Bitcoins due to time and other things, but back in those days, it was great. And you could mine for free or relatively free, the cost of your electricity, on a regular home computer or a laptop computer. Okay, and I mean it worked. You could mine on a graphics card. It was a very different space. Now if you have any desire to be a miner, you need to spend a fortune to get ASIC mining rigs. And if you're buying anything less than the top level of ASIC mining rigs, you're basically wasting your money, right? Because you're not going to compete against the people who have huge, much more powerful ASIC rigs, who are much more likely to hit that lucky lottery ticket every time than you are. Because ultimately, the math formulas that these ASIC mining rigs are solving, they're only solving them kind of by random chance, and they're really guessing, right? And so the only way for you to win in a competition against other people whose machines are just guessing is for you to have a faster machine that can guess more often, right? If you have a slower miner, by definition, you're at a disadvantage. It doesn't make it impossible for you to find a block, but it makes it so much more unlikely that it's not profitable. And in the long term, you're going to shut off your miner, right? Unless you're one of the big ones. And guess what happens when that happens? Well, the more and more little guys shut off their miners and leave it up to the big guys, well, guess what Bitcoin has become? It's become a giant centralized currency controlled by large interests. And isn't that what Bitcoin was supposed to get around in the first place? A peer-to-peer electronic system of delivering electronic cash from peer-to-peer, right, without having to use, trusted third parties, counterparties. Isn't that the whole point of Bitcoin, is to not have those things? It is the point of Bitcoin. That is why Satoshi designed it, right? And yet we have here a situation where you've got all this crypto tied up in the hands of a few very powerful miners and other interest parties, right? And because they're all based in China, guess what? If the government of China one day just decides, you know what? No more mining in China. What do you think would happen to the price of Bitcoin? What do you think would happen to Bitcoin? If all of a sudden there's no more mining, no more new blocks coming out from China, right? It all has to go to the rest of the world, right? And that's the good case scenario, right? The best case scenario is they let it continue to be as is and let the capitalists have their way. But China is a state-controlled country, heavily, right? They're in everything. And at some point, China will have an interest and say, you know what? All that crypto you've mined, dear Chinese miners, we, the state, are taking it. Right? They could easily do that. Now, if those miners have secured their passwords, maybe they can't. But a little bit of torture goes a long way in a authoritarian state like China. Right? You can extract a lot of information from people with just a little bit of pressure. Right? And the Chinese are very good at that, unfortunately. Right? They have a long history of abusing human rights, abusing political rights, censorship, you name it. They are literally what Bitcoin is designed to fight against. And yet, the Bitcoin community has essentially given itself up like a cheap and dirty you-know-what to the Chinese miners, thus effectively giving up Bitcoin to China. And I like Bitcoin, but let's face the facts. It is right now a toy for China. They fart and it goes up 40% in price. They fart the other direction and it comes down 40, 50, that entire 40% pump and then some, right? They snort a little bit more, make it just a snoring sound, and hey, the price goes back up again 10%. I mean, it's just the level of influence that they have in China is not disproportionate to the fact that there's billions of people living there. So what do you expect? Of course they're going to have a massive influence, right? But at the same time, that doesn't mean that's the best solution. I sure don't want to live in a world where Bitcoin is the only option. I mean, I definitely don't want that, right? Why? Because I don't use one currency in my life. I like to have options. And anyone who invests in anything does the same thing. The entire Forex market is predicated on trading the difference between currencies. So, what, you're going to get rid of all of the Forex channel? I mean, this notion of having one crypto is so foolish, naive, idiotic. It speaks volumes about the people that preach it, that have no idea about how technologies evolved, adopted, used, how currencies evolve, adopt, and use. I mean, if you are the kind of person that believes in only one kind of crypto, I'm willing to bet that when you formed that opinion, you were not well traveled in the world. And maybe you still cling to that opinion now after you are well traveled in the world, but I bet you when you formed that opinion, you weren't the most well traveled person. Maybe, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's just a guess. I'm guessing you lived in a country where you had a very stable currency and you never had to worry about any other currencies and you never had to know about anything like exchange rates or caring about what other cultures think about their own money or why other people like different monies for different reasons, right? There's many different reasons to like different monies. And it doesn't matter if they're all state centralized or not, or mixed up with cryptos or not. It doesn't matter, right? People have different interests for different reasons. And you can never, ever, with a macroeconomic guess, say, oh, this trend is happening because of that news. No, right? We know certain events happen and do affect market. Yeah, sure, we know that. But you can never, down to the person, be correct about what happened and why a person or a big whale or a small minnow did a certain action on the market. You'll never know. Because you can't, unless you have some way probing into their mind and really reading and understanding what they're thinking. And most people don't even understand what they think themselves. So how are you going to try to figure out what someone else is figuring out? Right? And how that affects the price of the market. It's a giant waste of time, right, to try to do that. But what isn't a waste of time is to try to understand how can you make something better than the current system? Well, now, long story short, what I would say is you look at all the pros and cons of an existing system you're using, right? And then you look at all the research that you can find out about it. You do all the R&D you can, and you set up your plan and make your new thing without worrying about, oh no, is there going to be too many cryptocurrencies in the space? First of all, there's already 5,000 cryptos on the market and another 5 or 10,000 in experimentation mode elsewhere. To think that 5 or 10 or 15,000 cryptocurrencies is too much, you don't understand how technology works. Because that same foolish thinking, and by the way, some brilliant people who I respect dearly and whose opinions I actually listen to, they believe this nonsense that we have too many coins. We don't have too many coins. Get that nonsense out of your head. We have far too few coins. You're going to see a world with 100,000 different coins. If you don't believe it, you're going to see a world, maybe there's going to be 1,000,000 coins. I don't know. Maybe there will, maybe there won't. Why? Because it costs nothing to make one. To create a coin costs very, very little, if not nothing. Right? The code is open. You can fork it for free. Right? Why people don't? Many reasons. But is it possible in a world of 7 billion people that there'll be at some point 1,000,000 different cryptocurrencies that have come and gone? Or that are even actively available? You bet it's possible. Does it mean it's going to happen for sure? No. Do we need 1,000,000 or more? No, you don't necessarily need them. But you do need to keep pumping out as many as possible until research and development and discovery show you which are, in fact, the most useful ones for humanity. And how will that be determined? That'll be determined by which ones we, in fact, use the most in one way or another. Right? And one of the ways you can use your money, which has been shown by cryptocurrency hodlers, is to hodl. And I know that sounds ridiculous, but if you just buy and hodl, that is an action. that supports the market you claim to believe in. If you buy and sell and buy and sell and buy and sell and trade all the time, and you don't actually hold anything, you're not helping the price go up. If you're interested in seeing the price go up, buying and selling does not help you. If you're interested in seeing the price go up, buying and hodling does help you, right? Well, what currencies encourage you to buy and hodl? Well, Bitcoin kind of does, except Bitcoin doesn't really do anything. People encourage themselves. It's a very strange altruistic project. By some miracle, it has not yet been completely demolished, right? It could have been already, right? We know about, there was, the time when a hacker was able to inflate the number of Bitcoin by many billions of coins, and that was quickly undone. They rolled back the chain, right? And then even last year, another such event happened when a developer at Bitcoin Cash went and found a bug in the Bitcoin code, and for some bizarre reason, because he's a nice guy, obviously, told the Bitcoin core development team, and they were able to solve the problem without it getting, hacked, essentially. But that's at least 2 times that Bitcoin has had critical, life-threatening problems that could have essentially killed it off, right, if it had been left unchecked. It didn't. They were able to fix it, whatever. But arguably, because Bitcoin has no central authority, because Bitcoin has no marketing energy, because Bitcoin has no business development, because Bitcoin has no government relations officers, because Bitcoin has no compliance officers, it has none of these things. It's just run by volunteers, and it was created by an anonymous person, and there's no central authority. So, arguably, Bitcoin, right, is actually extremely vulnerable. As strong as it is, for the reasons I've just listed, that it has no central authority and all these other things, it is politically resistant. It is the most approved of all the, it is the one with the most clarity in terms of regulation. But it is extremely vulnerable, right? Extremely. Not just because of the inflation bugs, not just because the errors happen in the code and not by 51% attacks, right? It is extremely vulnerable because without the human altruism of these coders to decide to just go on for who knows how long, they're going to continue to be nice people, there's no reward given to people who develop the code. Right? There's no official Bitcoin prize or reward from Bitcoin. There's no way to even bid on development work you want to do for Bitcoin. It is literally all voluntary, right? You can make tons of money developing Bitcoin, for sure. You can work for any of the companies that are developing Bitcoin, that are working hard to it, and that have funding. Sure, you can do that. But for the majority of the developers, it's a thankless, payless job. And at the end of the day, you're only going to do so much of that kind of work in your life. You're not going to commit your entire life to that. Unless you literally have resources beyond compare and you don't care about wasting your life without any reward, then go be a nun or a priest or something, and maybe that's what you are in the development world. But in the real world, where people live, where the 99.9% of us have to actually eat, live, sleep, breathe, pay our bills, etc., etc., you need to be productive, you need to get things done, you need to do things, and you need to be rewarded for them. If you're not rewarded for them, what are you doing it for, right? Just yourself, just to be able to write on the wall, I helped Bitcoin grow. Who cares? I can tell you, literally, who cares, right? As a former miner, I can tell you, no one cares, right? As a Bitcoin content developer, I can tell you, no one cares, right? The purpose, right, of involving yourself in the cryptocurrency, and again, this is not to bash Bitcoin. The purpose of involving yourself in cryptocurrencies in the first place is entirely personal. I can't tell you why you're getting involved in cryptocurrency, and you can't tell me why I got involved in it, right? Ultimately, it's really just another form of money and value asset transfer. No different than cash, except it's electronic, right? And trackable and traceable and all this other stuff. Immutable and whatnot. And you can write records with it, which you can't really write a record with cash. Right? Cash doesn't write a record. But digital fiat does. You certainly can write records on digital fiat transactions. Look at your credit card statement, right? Every single one of those digital dollars or digital whatever fiat you use, right? So along comes Richard Hart, looks at the situation, and decides, you know what? I've been mining this Bitcoin stuff. I've been making money on this Bitcoin stuff. I see the game theory of it. It doesn't have enough of what people want. Your time locks can't even earn you interest. So what good is that? You can't even do a smart contract. So what is that? All these things you want to add to it have to all be second layer or higher. What good is that when you already have it built in and baked in on Ethereum? And Ethereum lets you, develop more new features. They're much more open to changes. They're much more open to development and experimentation. Yeah, it's funny because for all the rollback requirements or all the inflation bug discoveries that people always talk about, like Bitcoin has been rolled back, and Bitcoin has had multiple inflation bugs discovered and fixed. Ethereum has never had an inflation bug, right? Ethereum got a lot of their a hacker did manage to take a whole bunch of Ethereum, right? So they did roll it back to get that money back. So the one who lost money there was that hacker, right? Because he had suffered the rollback. Well, I don't think that it would be wonderful if they decided to just let somebody steal their money. But at the same time, it does say, well, they're willing to do things over at Ethereum for reasons like righting a wrong, right? But at the same time, well, that isn't the most libertarian view you could take about a coin. Well, that's true, but frankly, who really wants that? If you're using a form of money, why would you want a form of money that could just be stolen by some clever hacker? Wouldn't you want that to be prevented? Or some justice to be executed onto that, particular action? I would. So we are now at a case, we're now at a state where crypto is basically stuck, right? You've got Bitcoin incapable of getting centralized anything. So therefore it can't really develop very much further unless you just continue to maintain the good graces of so-and-so developers or developer groups, right? I mean, it's not easy to maintain such a community, especially when the community disagrees with itself most of the time. You try to get anything updated in Bitcoin, it's pretty hard to actually have it adopt across the entire network, right? The last big adoption or change that actually happened, there was an upgrade of Bitcoin, a real upgrade, not just a little maintenance level upgrades or updates. But the last significant feature upgrade was the SegWit, right? That was years ago. That was 2017. Like, what have they done since then? Other than argue political battles about development and things like that. What good have they done? None. Like, sorry, Bitcoin developers. Yes, you've maintained the code. Wonderful. Great. You know what? We all have access to that same repository of code. Anybody could do that as long as they know how to code, right? It just happens to be that there's a community of developers and miners that are very aggressively protecting what's there, and they don't want things changed very much. And the things they want changed, nobody else wants them to do. So it's a lot of internecine fighting. And it doesn't help the development of the coin. And again, I am not anti-Bitcoin. I like Bitcoin a lot. Okay, I'm not a Bitcoin maximalist. I'm definitely not a Bitcoin supremacist or supremacist or whatever stupid word they use. I believe in having a multiplicity of coins on the market. Do I think that Bitcoin has a strong marketing use case? Well, there's some ways you could, yeah, sure, absolutely. Why not? Let's give it the benefit of the doubt. Yes, you can market with Bitcoin in a very strong use case at the moment because it is still the king of the cryptos and it's still the brand name that people know first. But does it give you, as a business owner, the best advantage of using crypto if you're marketing anything? No. No, it does not. It is absolutely 100% not the best coin you could use for a million reasons as a marketer. Okay? It is the best coins for a couple other reasons: immutability, uncensorable, political resistance, all these things that you pretty much don't need 99% of the time. But there is a 1% that does really need it, right? And there are really people who really do need that censor-resistant stuff. But it's not anonymous, right? It's pseudonymous, so you can kind of hide if that's what you need to do. But basically speaking, if you need to resist censorship, yeah, Bitcoin's good, right? It's wonderful. Great, go do it. But you know what? Ethereum's pretty good too, right? They had that one. I mean, they've never had a rollback because of code, ever. They've never had a code hack on the chain. Meanwhile, Bitcoin has had at least two vulnerabilities, one which was exploited, right? And another which was discovered and closed. So it is very hard to argue that Bitcoin is the best cryptocurrency in any way, shape, or form, apart from price action, which is still very arguable, and apart from the political and censorship resistance, which again are not perfect, but they're pretty good. They're the most expensive version we have at the moment, and maybe the most well-defended we have at the moment. But who is defending this network? Again, it's the miners, right? It's the people running the mining. Maybe you could say, well, I run a node. Great, you run a node, you compile the code, you look at it, you know what's going on inside of the code that you're running on your computer, or are you literally just running the standard application that anyone can download and just hit the exe button or whatever you're running? I mean, seriously, do you even know what you're running on your computer? Because if you don't, you're not really running the node. You're just running someone else's minion node. That's someone else being the person who decided what the defaults would be in the application you're using, right? That's someone else that you got the application installed from, or whatever. However you got the Bitcoin node on your computer, right? Whoever set that up, if you're not actually slicing and dicing it and looking it all over properly, and you don't really know what you're running, well, you're not really helping the network, okay? And if you're not mining, you're definitely not running the network in any way, shape, or form. You're literally a trampoline for people to bounce off of. That is effectively what you are if you're just running a node, right? Let's say you got a Casa node, one of those second layer, expensive, ridiculous nodes for the Lightning Network. They're great. They're wonderful, but they're also totally useless garbage, right? If you don't actually know what you're doing with it. You actually could just be, literally, if you put a Casa node in your house, you literally are just installing a liability in your house, right? Not only because if you don't know what's on there and you're just trusting that the developers are honest people, they could just screw you over. They could just switch the code on you one day when you're sleeping, right? They could do any number of things. Oh, and by the way, there is an argument by some that if you have a Casa node, literally every transaction you have, if it's not recorded properly, can cause you a legal nightmare down the line if they decide to come after people who are running a money transaction system, essentially a payment gateway, without a license. Because in any country, there's some kind of regulation about that. You can't just be, you can be a money changer and you can do all kinds of stuff without necessarily having a license. But there's some other things like a payment gateway, which Lightning is, that you cannot do without license and regulation, right? Now, does it apply to the Lightning Network? Well, maybe, maybe not. Check your local listings, right? Check your local laws. See how it applies to you. But that doesn't add to the viability of suddenly there being billions or millions of people getting Lightning nodes all across the world, making it easier to send and receive Bitcoin. Right? If anything, it's just an impediment. Because what appears like it's going to speed up and scale up the capability of Bitcoin is actually maybe just a liability, which would actually get a lot of Bitcoin nodes shut down. Because who runs Lightning networks? Typically, it's people who are already running a node. If you're running a node and then you're running a Lightning node, great. Maybe you know what you're doing. Maybe, hopefully. If you don't know what you're doing, you're really, really setting yourself up for not good things. All right. And if you're just buying a Casa node for the first time and you've never run a Bitcoin node and you don't know what you're doing with a Casa node, that's just not a good idea. I mean, again, and I love these second layer solutions, and I think we need more of them. Casa is a great concept, but until they get all the kinks worked out with all of the legal and regulatory issues, encouraging the average person to install one in their house without them knowing or even understanding the engineering behind it and all of the implications that it means. I mean, that's really like giving somebody, like, it's like giving a kid a loaded gun and saying, go play with yourself. Go play by yourself with this gun. I mean, it's insane. I would not do that. Now, it's not like giving somebody, 100x on a leverage exchange and saying, go blow all your money in one go, but it kind of is in a very roundabout way. Because at least on an exchange, you realize you're trading and you're losing money. You see it in front of your face. On Lightning node, you don't even realize that it might come and bite you in the backside in some more time when some regulators decide, oh, we don't like this Lightning thing, and it was created by so-and-so, and we're going to go after it and shut it down, and we're going to go after all the people who have ever had a Lightning node, and that is going to effectively shut down every Lightning node, right? In theory, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying the political threat is that it could happen in any one country or region, or maybe globally, if enough countries decide to stop it. And then what are you left with? Right? Then you're left with a Bitcoin that can't run the second layer solution designed to help it go faster, and which took years of political argument to get approved and built, right? Years of internal squabbling, right? It was not something that just happened overnight, the Lightning Network, right? And despite its name, it's not fast, right? It's only fast for second layer transactions. It's not fast in terms of development. So why HEX? What the hex with HEX? Right? Should you even claim your bag of HEX? Is it even worth it? What's the point if you're just telling me all this negative stuff about crypto? Well, here's the thing. I'm not telling you a bunch of negative stuff about crypto. I'm keeping it as realistic as I can. I'm telling you what I believe is the reality of cryptocurrency. And I believe firmly in cryptocurrency. I believe it is going to be something significant for the way we conduct financial transactions of one kind or another in the coming years. Now, do I think it's going to happen in America first? No. Actually, I think Americans are some of the worst at adopting good technology when it comes to things like this. They're great at certain innovations, actually quite amazing. But what happens to any empire that rests on its laurels too much, they start to get a bit heavy in the backside, and they start to lose steam, and they start to not have the ability to produce as much innovation anymore. And if you look at America, they've spent less and less on R&D in the last 10, 20, 30 years, and as such, we have slowed down our rate of innovation. That is not even a question. And that is why China is the world's second economic power now. Right? That's why they've leapfrogged ahead of Japan. It used to be Japan. Remember the 80s, the 90s? Japan was the world's second most important economic power, right behind the United States. And China is now in the second spot. Why? Not because of the number of people. They had 1 billion people before. They weren't the second most powerful economy. They came from way back in the pack. How did they do it? Well, they have not stopped doing R&D. Now, is their R&D all innovative and honest and ethical and the whole deal? No. They're liars, cheaters, and scoundrels like everyone else. And they have been copying intellectual property like everyone else. The thing is, they've been better at doing it than everyone else, and that really makes people angry. And therefore, they go after China because they're good at what they do. I don't particularly like China as a political organization. I like people from China. I have, had nothing but wonderful experiences with everybody I know from China, to be perfectly honest. I really can't think of any Chinese people that I haven't had good experiences with in general on a personal level. But as a political entity, it's a scary monster. It's a terrible place. I would not want to live there, right? And I forget to live there. I do not like to do business with China, right? Does that mean I can ignore China? No, hell no. You cannot ignore China. It's the 500-pound gorilla in the China shop, so to speak, to use the metaphor weirdly. You cannot ignore China, and to do so is foolish, right? And so, again, in my roundabout way of talking about HEX, why should you claim your bag of HEX, if at all, if all this stuff about crypto sucks? Well, first of all, if you already have any Bitcoin, right, if you have a Satoshi, you can get, your free HEX with a claim. That claim is only available to Bitcoin holders, right? That means if you bought Bitcoin and if you believe in the mission of HODL, HEX will actually give you a chance at getting some reward for that altruism and that belief, right? How? Well, because HEX is built to be the first cryptocurrency that is a certificate of deposit, right? A CD, a traditional banking type of CD, only in crypto, which means you claim your HEX with your Bitcoin. So let's say you have a Bitcoin, or you have 10 Bitcoin, or 1,000, whatever you have in your wallet, not an exchange wallet, not some other nonsense, your wallet that you know the keys of, right? Hopefully nobody else knows your keys. In your wallet, the Bitcoin will be snapshotted. And that's going to happen tonight at midnight, at the 1st of December. So later today. Whatever amount of Bitcoin you happen to have at the end of today, at the beginning of tomorrow, right, at 000 UTC time, that amount of Bitcoin is what you can claim in free HEX. And that is pretty great. Why do I say that? Well, if you had any Bitcoin, you know what it's like to claim. You might have claimed your free BCH. You might have claimed your free, other spin-off forked coins, right? And maybe you hate those other coins, but they were still free money to you. And if you were smart, you can't stand them, maybe you sold them back into Bitcoin. Maybe you did whatever you did. But you certainly didn't laugh at the idea of taking that free money. Or maybe you did. I don't know. Depends how much money you made. But free money is free money. When somebody says, come and take this free money, even if it's worth nothing right now, and it is worth nothing right now, come and take your free crypto. It is worth 0 at the moment. But it will gain, in theory, it will gain value over time. So if somebody gives you 1,000,000 things worth 0, and then at the end of the year, each of those things is worth 0.005, well, then suddenly you've actually made an enormous ROI that you actually can't calculate. It's an impossible. It's infinite. Right? The ROI on getting anything out of something that costs you 0 is infinite. So the math is kind of, you don't have to. But the point is, you could. I mean, you set a baseline. Call it a penny. It'll be worth a penny one day, and then we'll start to calculate its value. Or it'll be worth a millionth of a penny, and then we'll start to calculate its value. Whatever it is, that time will come. And HEX might have some value, and if it does, and you have received it for free, then whatever amount you got out of it is an enormous gift that costs you nothing, that literally you just went and claimed on a website via a very easy action, just by having crypto in your wallet whose keys you control. I mean, honestly, you might not like Richard Hart for whatever reason you might not like him. But how can you not like what he's doing here? Right? Now, some people say, oh, he's just doing this to grab money and get rich. Well, he's already pretty loaded from what anyone knows of him. I don't think he's doing it for the money. I really don't. Like, if you've got millions or whatever amount of money you consider a lot, and you've been doing this for so long, and you clearly have enough resources to just do whatever you want, you wouldn't go out of your way to create something like Hex, um, just for the money in the future that you might make if people adopt this thing and you do all these other things. It's not cheap to launch a cryptocurrency if you actually want it to grow, right? There's a lot of development and work and effort and everything. It does take time and money. It's cheap in the sense of you can clone a fork for free and you're done. But if you actually want to modify it and make sure it works and make sure that every transaction goes through and make sure that, it's got all the game theory in place and make sure that the smart contract is well defined, make sure you've got a community building itself up, make sure you got volunteers doing stuff, make sure you got content influencers making content, make sure you got, you name it. There is no shortage of materials you need to develop when you're developing a crypto with a plan beyond just some altruistic Bitcoin nonsense. Right? And again, I love crypto. I love Bitcoin. It's great, but it is altruistic nonsense in many levels, and that is what holds it back on many levels. Now, maybe that's what keeps it protected. Maybe that's what will help it grow ultimately, is that it was developed altruistically and it is maintained that way. But in order to have that in any other project, right, you can't rely on altruism. That doesn't go around. There isn't enough of it, right? You want your project to actually move forward according to timelines and schedules. You can't just, we're going to depend on volunteers. No. While Richard has been, I've noticed, extremely careful about never breaking any of the Howey test legs, he's been actually extremely careful about that. At the same time, right, people are coming at the project looking for ways to make it fail. You know what? Good, because the more ways they look, the more ways they fail to make it fail, the stronger it means the currency is designed, right? Whoever has the Genesis account or wallet or whatever is frankly moot and totally irrelevant to me. And I really don't care whoever has the Genesis account. When people say to me, "Oh, Richard just printed money out of thin air," sorry, what did Satoshi do? He printed literally money out of thin air, and I don't hear anybody complaining about that fact. And when XRP's anonymous maker created XRP, I never heard anybody complain about the fact that XRP's anonymous maker created XRP and potentially has a huge bag of it. I never heard anybody complain that Brad Garlinghouse has a lot of XRP. Have you? So what is this nonsense about printing money out of thin air? Literally every cryptocurrency in the world is printed, quote unquote, out of thin air, but it's entirely based on code, and it uses energy. So to call it thin air is insane, because it actually uses energy if you're mining. If it doesn't need mining, because it's pre-mined or whatever, it requires code. So to call it thin air is offensive, unless you believe that code is thin air, but it's not. Right? It takes time and effort to make that code. Right? Also, by the way, name a single currency of any kind, fiat or otherwise, that isn't literally printed out of thin air. Where does the dollar get printed? Do you even know? Right? It gets printed in a mint, right? Who decides how much dollar gets printed on any given day? How many dollars? The central bank, right? The Federal Reserve, right? So they literally print money out of thin air. How do they do it? They press a button on their computer, and they say, today, we're adding $87 billion. Right? They type in 87 billion, or whatever. $100 billion today, we're going to print. Boom. Done. Enter. Right? So for you, or anybody, to sit there and judge the creator of any cryptocurrency, period, for you to judge the creator of a cryptocurrency, of any kind, and to say that that person is doing it entirely for greedy reasons and they should be laughed at or ignored or whatever, that just ignores reality. It just ignores reality. Right? What is the reality? The reality is that Cryptocurrencies are just another form of money. They are all created by people, intelligent things, whatever you want to call them. Not a single one has ever been created by something that didn't have another interest in having this currency. All cryptocurrencies are created around interests, right? All of them. All currencies, period, are created around interest. What is that interest? The interest is to facilitate exchanges, transactions. That is the purpose of currency, to facilitate transactions. If you don't understand that, please go read, the history of economics. Please go read the history of money. Please go learn some things about finance before you enter this space. Which comes back to the question, should you claim your bag of HEX? To which my answer is no. Please don't. Leave it for me. Okay? What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, the bag of HEX you want to claim, if you don't understand what it is and how it works, do me a favor. Don't claim it. Go learn first. Then come back. Then figure it out. You still got a bunch of hours. You might do it all today. Go read. But remember, HEX only has this claim bonus advantage for the first year. After year one, that is all gone. And what matters at that point is things like the adoption amplifier, which if you don't know what that is all about how you take ETH and convert it into HEX. And it's very simple because HEX is an ERC20 token, which means it is very easy to convert from if you have ETH in your wallet, you can easily buy HEX with your ETH, right? And then you get all kinds of adoption bonuses for doing that. Again, all of these adoption bonuses and everything else, they're geared at driving what the creator of the coin calls pumpamentals, which you have to admit is a good, funny marketing name. If there's anything you can say about Richard Hart, is he definitely understands marketing. Okay, internet marketing, crypto marketing, not a question about it. He gets this. He knows how it works. He gets how it has to work. He's good at building online communities, despite whatever anybody else might want to say about him. He's actually very proficient in this kind of thing, right? The adoption amplifier basically lets you earn HEX in exchange for your ETH, and that way you have, if you don't already have Bitcoin, you can already go and increase your amount of HEX that you can get, right? Plus you can use the referral bonus to get yourself another 10%, and you can refer yourself twice. It's not a multi-level thing. You only have one layer or two layers of referral. That's it. There is no third layer of referrals, right? So you can sign up and you can refer yourself. Thus, that's really the one referral you can do to yourself, right? So you can benefit essentially from a double referral through the one layer of referral that exists, but there is no MLM scheme. There is no get your friends to join up and be on your pyramid. All that does not exist in HEX. All that is the kind of crap you see in Ponzi schemes. All that is the kind of crap you see in garbage cryptocurrencies that are trying to maximize their usage and their adoption for the simple reason that they want the people at the top of the pyramid to get all the money and the people below that top of the pyramid to not get anything. All right, they're just working for the people at the top. All right. Well, how do you fix that? Well, in HEX, what I've noticed, right, is that people who have, for example, if you have huge bags, if you're a whale, if you're a massive exchange and you have more than 1,000 coins on a wallet, guess what? You have a penalty if you claim HEX. All right? If you're Satoshi and you don't claim your HEX after a year, you don't get to claim any free HEX. Doesn't matter if you're Satoshi or anybody else. Any amount of Bitcoin you have, that you're a regular retail investor, and you bought and hodled this stuff, despite the miners and the whales dumping on you continually, right? If you are one of the regular folks who just has some Bitcoin, you can get your free HEX for up to a year. And every day it goes down by some percentage until it goes from, 100% to 0%. So you got like 350 days or whatever, you got a year basically, almost a year, 50 weeks, something like that, to claim free HEX. And it goes down every single week or day even. So if you want to claim it, and again, it's free, so why not? Then the smartest time to do that is probably the first day, which is tomorrow. So get your wallets ready and watch. There's like a video on the HEX website, which, by the way, you can see here on the screen, right? And you can go to this HEX website, read all about it, read all the critiques, go into the Telegram group, look at the community that he's been building, ask Richard questions. Like, he answers them. He's actually very friendly and very easy to communicate with, to be perfectly honest. So, look at this. I mean, the expression, don't look a gift horse in the mouth? Right? Well, a lot of people have bought hook, line, and sinker into a bunch of shite coins because of that. Because they didn't look the gift horse in the mouth. They trusted the third party to give them a great gift horse. And then it turns out that the gift horse, maybe he's got gum disease, maybe he's missing a tooth or two, maybe he's got wobbly knees, maybe he's not doing so well, right? And you should have looked. And you should have inspected. And that's what you should do here. You should never get involved in anything to do with finances until you understand them, right? Because you could be making a huge mistake. I have done all the research that I could think of that I was interested in doing that made me feel comfortable in deciding that, you know what? This guy understands the system for how you make a crypto and grow it. You want a crypto to grow, you need to have a dedicated effort that rewards developers. You need to have a dedicated effort that rewards marketing or whatever anything else can be done about it, right? You need to have some kind of, not centralized, but you need to have some kind of effort, even if it's not promised by the coin, even if it's just literally created by the community of users, right, the way Bitcoin was. You need to have some kind of effort, or these things won't happen. And you can't be held back by this nonsense that has held back Bitcoin all this time, which only rewards the miners. Ultimately, that is the problem with Bitcoin. You cannot get rewarded by Bitcoin for anything other than mining. And that limits its ability to scale. That limits its ability to develop. That limits its ability to adoption. That limits its ability to anybody wanting to do anything for it. Because the only people getting money are rich miners. And if you were one of the lucky people who mined many years ago and stayed in it, and not one of the people like me who got into it and then had to get out of it through whatever reasons. If you're one of the people who's still mining and you have a huge mining farm, like, good on you, but you're not doing anything for the world. Sorry. If you really cared about the world and you were an altruistic miner, you know what you'd actually do? First of all, you would visibly make your entire system green, eco-friendly, right? If you really cared about that stuff. I know a lot of Bitcoin miners are going green or are green, but a lot of them still aren't, and you can bet your butt the biggest ones are not. If they really were so altruistic as everyone pretends that they are, right? And they're really the only greedy ones in the bunch. They're the only ones enforcing rules by, I want to say by fiat, but by crypto, right? The miners are the ones taking the money first. They're making the money, and they're selling it. What are they selling it for? They're selling it in order to pay their electricity bills that it took to mine and to make a profit, right? You've never bought, unless you mine, you've never touched a Bitcoin, well, digitally speaking, you've never received a Bitcoin or sent a Bitcoin or any part of one that didn't go through some mining, right? Because that's how they're created, right? And unless you created it, well, so if you're a miner and you're just dumping pollution on the environment in order to pay your electric bills in order to make a small profit, you're not really contributing much to the earth. Sorry to tell you that, pal. But if you're a miner who's making an open effort to be transparent and green and everything else, and also you're not just mining and dumping, but you're also mining and hodling or mining and redistributing through other means. What could that mean? Well, that could mean a lot. Well, again, unless you're doing something positive with the Bitcoin you mine as a miner, then you're not doing a net positive thing on the planet, right? Because if you're just creating pollution in order to pay your bills to make a little bit of money at the end of the day, you haven't really done anything positive. You could have just let that existing pollution camp somewhere just produce that stuff and not add more pollution where you are. You could have just instead not mined, and maybe it'll just take longer to mine that Bitcoin, and so maybe the world will just be a little bit cleaner for that much longer, right? I mean, again, I love Bitcoin. I don't want people to think I'm against it, because I'm not against it. I speak constantly about Bitcoin and how wonderful it is in many respects, because it is. But we are here talking about the fine details, and the fine details between different cryptos. And again, no one's paying me to talk about HEX. Frankly, I don't even know why I'm talking about HEX today. Something moved me this morning when I got up and I realized, hang on, you know what? Tomorrow is the claim day. Right? Tomorrow's the snapshot day. It's day one, essentially. So if you want your HEX, I thought, well, maybe I should just say something about it. But I wanted to go over about why you should consider, should you claim it or not? And at the end of the day, it's a free currency. I see all these crypto influencers out there, Sonny Decree and everybody out there I'm not, sorry, Sonny, no offense, man. I dig you, man. You're good. Sometimes I don't agree with your opinions, but so what? That's great. I think you'd make good content, and it doesn't matter. But there's tons of content influencers out there. All of them have spoken. Well, since we've already mentioned Sonny's name, there's K-Dub from Crypto Zombie. There's, Crown from Crown's Crypto Cave. There's Ivan on Tech. There's the Lark. I'm trying to think of who hasn't spoken with Richard in the last few months or half year or so about HEX. Pretty much he's been on a lot of different crypto shows, right? And he's spoken to some people even multiple times about it, and at different conferences he's presented and all that good stuff. So if you're in this space, you've probably heard of HEX, right? If you know about it, and if you understand how crypto works, and if you've ever claimed any free crypto before, and you realize what you got out of it, the only thing I can tell you is, if you know all the things you need to know about HEX and about crypto and about how money works, what possible reason could you have to not at least claim your free HEX? And if you have ETH and you actually think that HEX makes sense, that you can earn interest on a coin that people hodl, and that you see all the time locks, right, on a public record that no other crypto has ever done before, so that you can see when the whales are going to pump or dump. Well, not going to pump or dump, but you can see when they're going to dump their holdings, because it's right there on their time lock, right? And it's publicly recorded. If you can see all that, and you have ETH, and you believe in HEX, and you think all this is, then yeah, maybe it's for you. I don't know. I really don't know. But to claim the free stuff, you kind of gotta be stupid not to, right? I don't want to offend you if you're not claiming your HEX. Even if you think Richard is the scammiest dude on the planet, okay? I don't think that about him. But even if you think that, he's giving you something for free. At the end of the day, it costs you nothing. What do you care? Take it, lock it up, and do whatever you're going to do with it. Take it, it's free, it's yours, do whatever you want. I think the kind of default model, if you haven't been reading your HEX documentation, right, is that people will basically lock up their HEX for a year, hoping that will give them a good return. At the end of the year, they'll cash it out. Yay! Some people will see the benefit of locking it up for 2 years, 3 years, maybe even 10 years or longer, whatever. And whatever the game theory is you're operating with, whatever the edge is you're using to maximize your gains, wonderful. But again, to simply laugh off a project because you don't like something about the founder or the way he presents things, that's just really patently ignorant, right? Like, I can tell you, as somebody who, for example, thinks that um, there are many founders of cryptos out there who are full of it, and there are also many detractors of crypto who are also full of it. And I can tell you that if any of them ever actually made a worthy project that clearly does not come off as a scam, right? It clearly comes off as an honest project that has been audited multiple times by multiple firms who do not have shared interests, right? They have completely independent interests, and it has been criticized by one crypto, insider after the other for months on end. And to be perfectly honest, I have not seen a debate in which Richard Hart has come out the clear loser when he talks about Hex. I really haven't seen that. And the reason for that is because his arguments for Hex are very sound. It's not a mistake to want to make a better thing when you've been disillusioned by the worst thing. And I'm not saying that Bitcoin is bad or that any other crypto that he's ever been involved in is good or bad. I'm saying, right, that it is a good thing to want to improve. And Richard Hart, has shown that he wants to improve the state of cryptocurrency, even if it means to enrich himself ridiculously. I don't know, maybe it will, maybe it won't. I really don't know or care. He wants to offer a cryptocurrency which has better features, better products, better services built into it than the other cryptos currently on the market. How has he done that? Well, very simply, he used the same model that anybody uses when they want to make something better. You look at all the best and the worst of everything that's out there, you toss out the worst, and you copy the best, and you do more of the best. And you innovate upon the best, and you make it better than the best. And that's how you do that, right? So to criticize Hex and just say it's bad because the guy who came up with the notion said on a stream once in what appeared to be quite emotional moment that he's just going to create a coin to shill it and give it pumpamentals because he's going to use the game theory that worked for all the other scam coins, and that way he can make a lot of money too. You know what? I saw that stream. I was there. It was live. I watched it. And I've seen other streams where he was kind of, joking a little bit about it at the beginning. But you know what? He has evolved. He has evolved not just himself on a at least public persona point of view. He has evolved what he says about Hex. Not just so that he can sell it to the ignorant fools who don't know any better. But he actually has changed it, right? It was originally this thing where I'm going to use all the pumpamentals and I'm just going to, we're just going to use the thing that all the scams use in order to make a bigger one, to make money for everybody. But that quickly evolved into the realization that you could use those same pumpamentals to do good things with a crypto, right? To be honest and transparent with it. And as unlikely as it may seem to you, if you are not a fan of Mr. Hart, the fact is, Hex now is very different than when it was first conceived. Hex now is very much ready for market in a way that it was not when it was first conceived of and mentioned and discussed on air. Hex is very much ready to be a cryptocurrency. I don't market Hex. I don't, I don't own it. I mean, obviously nobody has any yet. I don't own the, if there's a company behind it or anything like that. I'm nothing. I'm not connected to that. I don't get paid by Richard or anybody who works for Richard or anything like that. I don't think he actually has paid anybody to do any marketing ever for that. So this is just my entire, this is my opinion, right, about this particular crypto. And the reason that I actually think it's worth claiming for free, right? And to do so quickly, right? Because if you don't claim for a year, You can't claim anymore. And the faster you claim, the more of a bonus, essentially, the more HEX you get. Do I think it's worth buying HEX? Well, that's my personal decision. I actually do think it's worth buying HEX, in my personal opinion. Not advice I would give to anybody, because I'm not going to ever tell you to buy or sell any particular coins. But the free stuff, I mean, come on. It's free. Don't be stupid. Even if you got free Bitcoin Cash, like I said, and you hated that stuff, and you can't stand Roger Ver, you still managed to sell it, right? If you didn't like it. You still managed to make some nice chunk of change on that, right? And it costs you nothing, right? Maybe arguably you can say, yeah, well, it cost us the price of Bitcoin because of the war, whatever. You got free money? What are you complaining about? Right. I think I've been going on a while. I don't even know how long this has been going on, but probably too long. But look, folks, it's today. It's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow, that's it. There is not going to be another chance to get your Bitcoin into your wallet to make your claim. Whatever you have in your claim tonight at midnight, at the snapshot, that's what you get to claim. You have, a little less than a year to do it, like 350 something days to claim. So don't miss the opportunity to claim if you have Bitcoin in your own wallet. And if you don't have Bitcoin in your own wallet, but you have Bitcoin in some exchange or something, and you're not in an open trading position or something like that, what are you doing? First of all, why are you leaving your money on someone else's wallet? I mean, you're literally putting your money in someone else's wallet and saying, here, hold this for me. Why? Put it in your wallet, be done with it. At the very least, you can claim free things like this. Maybe you don't like HEX. Maybe there's another project where you can do it. But not having your control of your own money, when you're not even like earning interest on it or anything else like that, it's just silly. You're literally holding dead money. What's the point of that? It's not working for you. If your money's not working for you, you're using it wrong. You're doing it wrong. Learn how to make your money work for you. And that is the point of this video, really, is as a marketer, you need to learn how to let things work for you, right? You can't just try to do everything because it's not possible. The way that you reach bigger network effects as a marketer is by doing things like having your systems automated. Well, guess what's like automation? When your money works for you, that is literally automation. And if you don't have a system in place that lets you automate your money production, then you are cutting yourself short. You need to focus on how you can automate your money production and how you can automate your money generation and regeneration. And those things will help you not just to be a better marketer, but to do so with better financial power as well. And to understand that, because it is helpful when you are a marketer to have more financial resources, right? Because if you have no financial resources, it's really hard to market things, or it's harder, right? You need to rely on non-paid solutions, and those just take more time. If you don't have that kind of runway to start and to run with, you could fall short and hurt yourself or your company or whatever. Which, again, comes back to the topic of why should you accept HEX for free if you have Bitcoin in your wallet? To which the answer is to have more financial resources. It is free cryptocurrency. It doesn't cost you anything at this time to receive it if you have crypto already in your wallet that is Bitcoin. And if you are one of the many people who has been hodling Bitcoin, and you understand that Bitcoin's life and longevity and all this stuff is still relatively young, and there's still a lot of unknown, there's still a lot of development, there's still a lot of price action to happen, there's still everything, and you just believe in Bitcoin, you know what? Good for you. Claim your free HEX, lock it up as long as you want, forget about it. In a year, 2 years, 10 years, whatever, make sure your calendar rings you on that date and says, hey, time to cash out, because if you leave this stuff in here too long, there's a penalty and all that stuff. You got to read the rules. So cash out on the right time so that you get all the benefits and no penalties. And then, you know what? Then you can laugh and say how a terrible idea it was, and at the same time count your money, right, that you got for free from HEX. So again, I'm not telling you to go out and do anything. I'm not telling you it's going to be worth anything. I'm not telling you they're going to do anything about it to make it a better system. But the way it's built, if you read the documentation, if you not just look at the interviews with Richard, which are great and usually pretty insightful, but I mean, you can get more out of the actual documents if you are willing to read it. If you actually go through it properly and do your own research, I think you will come to find, as I have, that this project is going to do something. It is going to get somewhere. It is going to get some kind of traction. What is it going to do? I think it is going to go live. And I think it is going to get some level of adoption. And I think there are people who are simple retail investors who are going to flock to getting their claim tomorrow. They're going to run to get their claim as fast as they can. And I think then there's many other people who don't get it, who will slowly but surely start to get it as that time clock runs out. And towards the end of the year, as more and more people realize, we're running out of time, you're going to have people looking for that. But here's the thing. Remember, there's only like 20 million people in the whole crypto space actively using any kind of Bitcoin anywhere, right? Let's just say it's 20. It's less than a few million have more than $1,000 in their wallet. So it's not like there's millions and millions of people that are going to line up tomorrow and claim their free HEX. That's highly unlikely. Which means you are in a much better position if you do claim tomorrow, right? Or even day 2, whatever, if you're lazy, whatever. Claim tomorrow. Be day 1. Why not? You will be in a much better position. Why? Because you're claiming on the first day, which means you are going to be getting the maximum amount that you can get for your claim and your referrals, if you do it right. And, it means that you will have essentially a bigger part of a smaller pie if you look at the world in that limited resource sense, which is one way to look at the world until you understand that there's actually not such limited resources. You have to think of a world where you can actually imagine more, right? So even if you view the world from that pessimist, limited scarcity of resources view, well, then you should understand that the fewer people who claim tomorrow, and if you're one of them, the better off you are, right? It's the same thing with the adoption amplifier, by the way. I mean, it's a little different, but the concept is the same, is that if Satoshi doesn't claim, if the big whales don't claim, if the big exchanges don't all claim, there's going to be less people claiming HEX, which means that the people who are in HEX will each have a larger share of the HEX that is available in circulation, right? And even though it has a continual, whatever it is, 3.5% inflation per year, right? That's the programmed rate. That rate is actually less than the inflation we've seen in Bitcoin until now, which is funny because everyone says Bitcoin is deflationary, but there's been inflation in it since the beginning. Because how could you get from 0 coins to 18 million coins without inflation? Obviously, it's inflated, right? Yes, the rate of inflation deflates or reduces over time, and in another 150 years, when there's no more Bitcoin to be mined, the rate of inflation will be 0, finally. But to call it a deflationary currency is a little bit of a word game, okay? Yes, it's kind of true, but it's also kind of not true. Because there is inflation in Bitcoin. You can't have 18 million coins mined out of nowhere and then say that there was no inflation. That's literally inflation, right? They're inflating the number of coins on the market. HEX has a pre-planned 3.5% or whatever it is, growth per year, period. Like a normal rate of inflation that we see in many different currencies. And you'll argue, well, if it's got inflation, inflation's the whole problem, it devalues everything. No. What devalues currencies is not that there is inflation, because if that was true, then you could say, well, then what devalues humanity is the number of people. Well, that's completely insane, okay? The number of people doesn't devalue humanity. The more people we have, the more valuable we are, because we are a bigger asset with more human beings, right? The more currency you have, as long as it grows over a long period of time in a healthy and controlled manner, then you can actually get a very healthy cryptocurrency that has normal levels of inflation, okay? The entire idea of having zero inflation, when you're in desperate times and you're fighting against the banks and they're stealing money from you from fees and interest rates and all these things that you don't really understand or care about, yes, it's very easy for a developer to say, you know what, I'm going to make a coin that's deflationary. Maybe it'll take 200 years to get there, but it's deflationary. Or I'm going to make a coin that has no inflation. We're just going to pre-mine everything, 80 billion coins, dump them on the market, boom, and zero inflation from here on out. Okay, you could do that, right? But that doesn't take into account a healthy growth scale. A healthy growth scales look at the world as they are, not as we want them to be. And they say, how can we make things better? Well, there's an ever-growing population count. So why would you get rid of something as simple as inflation of your coin when the number of people increases every day? I mean, if you're going to have, 100 quadrillion coins of something to serve 7 billion people, but in 10 years it's going to be 8 billion people, in 30 years it's going to be 10 billion people or whatever, then that means that there's less and less money per person, which is another one of the insanities of Bitcoin, especially considering how much people lose Bitcoin forever, right? They're literally, I don't care if there's 2 quadrillion Satoshis left after, many years and half of them are lost. It's still not enough. Why? Because people are constantly multiplying. Therefore, we have an asset management problem. You cannot service the entire planet with a fixed scarce resource that people are continually losing. It just won't work. And to think that it will is absolute folly, okay? Again, not a reason not to like Bitcoin for the long term or for many other reasons, but to think that any one currency in such a state could be a global reserve currency? You mean you have to be mad? A quarter of the currency is gone forever, and you want to use that as a global reserve currency? You're crazy. That's not going to work. And it can never inflate past 21 million coins, which means that you can never service a bigger population to have more than previous populations? You're kidding me, right? So you're literally telling future generations, sorry, you're all going to have less of this forever. That's supposed to encourage people to want it? That has the absolute opposite effect. It's not like gold, okay? People say, oh, it's e-gold. No, it isn't. People value gold not because of the monetary reasons. The only people who give a damn about the money that gold is worth are the people who buy and sell it, the traders, the exchangers, the jewelers, the chip manufacturers. The end customer does not care about the price of gold. The only reason that they care about the price of gold in any sense is it too expensive for them to buy that jewelry or that thing they need or whatever. They don't care about the price of gold ounces. They don't even know what the hell it is. Right? And gold is a scarce supply that can only serve so many people, etc., etc. But you know what happens to gold when it gets lost and it goes back into the earth? It can be rediscovered. You know what happens to a blockchain when you lose the private keys? Good luck rediscovering that. It's not going to happen. Right? It's gone. Gold can be resmelted. Gold can be reused. Gold can be lost and found. Gold can be a lot of different things. And again, I'm not a gold bug. I definitely prefer Bitcoin to gold. But to deny gold's properties and to say that it doesn't have any value compared to Bitcoin is wrong. But also to use it as an example of a deflationary value or deflationary asset for as a fixed supply serving a growing population. Well, guess what? that's no longer the case. We know there are asteroids floating around in space worth many quintillions of dollars. I mean, the numbers are so large they're ridiculous. And if even one of these things was mined, it would entirely throw gold out the window in terms of a scarce resource. Like, there's more gold on this one asteroid they've detected flying around space than on all of the Earth many times over. And that's one asteroid. How much do you think there is in space and other asteroids and planets? The answer is probably a lot more than we think there is here on Earth. Right? So gold does not have an intrinsic value once we are able to mine it from other sources. It doesn't have a scarce value once we're able to get it from anywhere. Right? The reason it's been so valuable to us is because it's yellow, it's warm looking, it's shiny, it's all these other wonderful things that primitive apes and early man looked at and thought, wow, that is really nice. I want some of that. Right? And then they figured out stuff to do with it. Trade it, shape it, use it, whatever. Eat it if you're ridiculously wealthy. For no reason, as it has no nutritional value. But people still eat gold leafing food. Right? So, people put value on things that are based on perception. And if you perceive that HEX is built in a way that it can continue to supply a growing population with a steadily inflating amount of coin, not that much more than the amount of humans who inflate on Earth, right? And you look at it as, well, this is an opportunity, like a homesteading opportunity, where anybody can go out and grab their, you can claim your land, but you have X amount of time to do it in. That is going to motivate people who are into the space, and that is going to motivate people who want to get in, but all they maybe did was they bought some Bitcoin way back when, and then they find out about HEX, and they're like, oh, I can get some free HEX? Yeah, I'll try that. And then I just hold it, and then maybe it'll be worth more in the future, right? Who knows what they're going to think. I'll just buy it. Maybe they'll buy it in 2 years, 3 years when they won't have that opportunity to claim it, right? And they'll just buy it. And maybe they'll just hodl it because they view it as a CD, like a lot of people will, since that's how it's designed. It's the first high-yield CD in crypto, right? And it's the first crypto that is a high-yield CD, essentially. And instead of trusting a bank, you're trusting the code to service the people who are using the code. You make your own money with HEX, right? Richard's not going to mine this for you. Right? You mint your own coins. Right? There isn't going to be Bitmain in China taking your money in order to mine more coins in order to sell them back to you at a higher price or whatever. Right? There isn't going to be an ASIC miner shipped out to mine HEX. Right? Because it runs on the Ethereum USD20 token. It doesn't need all that nonsense. You can mine it and you can mint it. Literally, you do mint it, right? There is nobody at HEX minting anything for you. There is no functionality beyond you doing your own work. Right? Nobody at HEX is promising you any work. Nothing. And that's a critical test of this, right? Nobody at HEX has promised you anything. They said, you want this free stuff? We'll give it to you for free. On such and such a date, we're going to take a snapshot, and you have such and such time to go and claim your piece of it. Do you want to make any use of that? Feel free. You don't want to make any use of that? Up to you. Right? Nobody's stopping you to do what you want. And again, it's free. So why not? I don't understand why people are so against something that's so free and has frankly been covered so extensively in this space. And when I see these people who are just out there, the level of, I'm not sure if it's just because they're playing up to the camera and they're just pretending to be so ignorant and so anti-everything. But I see people, even like, Tone Vays, right? Who's frankly not a stupid person. He's very smart, right? Talks about, I don't care if he's a good trader or not. Don't tell me the guy's not smart. Listen to him speak. He's pretty smart. There's a lot of people I disagree with a lot who are very smart, right? Andreas Antonopoulos, brilliant guy, horrible human being. Don't talk to him about women, but because he's not good with that topic, right? But he's really smart about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and he understands that stuff really well. Except, yeah, I'm not going to go into that topic now. But my point is, right, that you don't need to be thinking about what smart brain is causing this cryptocurrency. No, you need to look at the code. You need to look at the documentation. You need to look at the information, right? It's not just because some smart guy tells you this is a scam or this is real that you should believe them, right? And it's not just because some fancy guy says, oh, this is a shitcoin that you should believe it. And, oh, by the way, you should really consider the fact that 99.9% of cryptocurrencies out there are crappy. They don't actually have any function. They're utility. They're shitcoins, whatever you want to call them, because they don't yet have any adoption or utility or store of value. And yet they exist. And yet many of them pumped tons in the last bull run that they had, right? Tons, huge, massive gains. So why wouldn't you want then to have some amount of a crypto that takes all of their game theory, all of the best aspects of their game theory, puts them on a crypto and says, we're going to do this, this, and that on a completely transparent crypto where, unlike these other shitcoins, you will see everything top to bottom, right, about who's going to dump when and everything, because all that time lock stuff is right there on a public record, and you will literally be able to see and do with this crypto probably more than you've ever been able to see and do with another crap coin. Okay? You'll know more about it ahead of time. You'll be able to hodl and not care. You can forget about it. You can hodl and know that in time, if the game theory works, you stand to have a nice return of HEX at the end of a year or 2 or 3 or whatever. Maybe you make, I don't know, whatever percentage you'll make. Whatever percentage you'll make or not, it's been given to you for free. You literally can't lose money if you take free HEX. You can, however, lose money if you don't claim your HEX, right? Because then what happens if you had a Bitcoin and you never claimed your HEX, and in 3 years, HEX is worth even a smidgen more than now? Well, then you lost some money, right? You just let it walk away from you. So again, should you claim your HEX? No. Leave more of it for me. Should you claim your HEX? No, because you haven't read your documentation. Should you claim your HEX? No, because you don't understand it and you think it's a scam. Right? If you think all those things, definitely don't get your HEX. But if you've actually done HEX news, HEX memes, which is quite funny and popular. There's all these different, there's HEX Crypto on Reddit, HEX Crypto on Twitter, HEX, check out the HEX GitHub. You name it, he's out there, right? It's happening. Today is the last day before the snapshot. Tonight is the snapshot. If you want a piece of HEX, claim your HEX and do it by making sure you have your Bitcoin. If you already have Bitcoin, just make sure it's in a wallet you control that hopefully nobody else controls. That's gonna do it for today. I know I've made this video a lot longer than the usual ones, but I wanted to give it some time. The reason for that is because I really just want people to take advantage of a huge, or potentially nothing opportunity, but a potentially huge opportunity. Right? It may give you some reward in the future. And as a marketer, I certainly want to bring that to your attention. If you are marketing, this may be useful to you. If you are a company doing marketing and you have some Bitcoin and you don't have, you have like a 10, 15, 20, 100, 500 Bitcoin, maybe this is in your interest to get some free HEX and boost your business assets, right? My interest in this is really just in sharing this with you. And as a marketer, I look at HEX as a classic use case of how to do marketing right in crypto. Okay? Yeah, you copy the best elements of the technical side of everything else, or you use the best elements of the technical side of things like that, like by using Ethereum, which still has proof of work. And you also mimic the ones who use the best techniques, even if they do them for the bad purposes, right? Even though those shillers and Ponzi's and scammers were bad people and did bad things, they used brilliant tactics to get mass adoption. Why not use those same brilliant tactics for an honest product? So that at the end of the day, when people have bought into something or signed up to something, at least they're all in, not on something that's completely just stealing from them and scamming them. They're doing something that's honest, right? And so you're getting into something that is not just going to disappear on you. I mean, hopefully, right? I don't know. I'm not Richard Hart. I'm not on his team. I don't know anything like that. But I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he has been publicly out there for many years talking about crypto and Bitcoin and everything else. And even though he, appears from his magical throne on his video without ever telling anybody exactly where he is, and it's irrelevant, he is not the kind of person who you've never heard of is going to create something and then just sucker everybody into buying it and disappearing, right? He's a pretty well-known, pretty visible guy in this space. So, yeah, could he disappear and run away with millions of HEX? Yes, but if you didn't buy any, what does it cost you? And he can't run away with it, actually. It's not possible in the code. He doesn't control it, right? So if you understand anything about code, you'll know that's not really possible, right? Once it's distributed, once it's live, once it's on the open network, and it's out there, and it's a protocol that anybody can participate in, and the contract is locked, well, he can't do those things that everybody's afraid of. At least not in that way, right? Now, people will say, yeah, invent a better mouse, invent a better mousetrap or something like that. Or invent a better mousetrap to make a smarter mouse. Yeah, maybe. But so far, and I've been looking for flaws in this system because I am interested in it, I have not found that fatal flaw. So if it does exist, please comment below. Please let me know what evidence you actually have of anything about HEX not being up to par with what you think it should be. If you think it's shady or whatever, tell me why. If you think it's just a get-rich-quick scheme for Richard, tell me why. What evidence do you have to support that? Right? Like, I don't personally know Richard face to face as a friend or anything like that. I've never hung out with the guy. Have I messaged him, chatted with him here and there on the internet? Yes. Have I asked him a lot of questions about HEX that I was originally very suspicious about? You bet. Has he answered them very carefully and thoughtfully and clearly without throwing in an emotional hissy fit? Yes. Yes, actually, all of those questions, I have to say yes. So, do I think it's worth getting free HEX? Well, for me, yeah, I do think it's worth it. For you, I'm not going to speak for you, but I will say if you think that making such a product, building such a community over time, doing all of this stuff, all these media appearances, all this building up of content and building up of the actual plan and the product and building the code and auditing the code and then auditing the code again and then bringing that to public view and then letting people trash it in public and do all kinds of say terrible things about it, even though they have never even looked at the code and they've never even looked at the documentation, let alone the code. Such a product is built to survive. Who among you ever heard of Plus Token or One Token before it was announced to be a scam? Right? Practically nobody, unless you're living in China, right? And yet they managed to walk off with a couple 100,000 Bitcoin because they just scam people, right? But if you're in crypto, you've definitely heard of Richard Hart, and you might have your opinions about him. You might not like what he does or has done, or I don't know what he's going. I don't know. You might not like him for whatever reason, just like you might like anybody for whatever reason. And there's that old expression: if you're doing something, and half the people hate you and half the people like you, you're doing something right. Yeah? And if you're doing something and nobody cares about what you're doing, then what you're doing is basically, I mean, you might be doing great things for your own personal life, but you're definitely not impacting the world if nobody cares about what you're doing, right? People who have impact have detractors. People who do good things have detractors. People who do bad things have detractors. But definitely people who do things that anyone else cares about have detractors. And they will usually have at least as many detractors as they have fans. Right around that amount. So, end of the day, coming today, tomorrow, starting at midnight tonight, there will be a HEX snapshot of Bitcoin, or the Bitcoin snapshot. That Bitcoin snapshot will be used to determine what amount of HEX you can claim at no cost to you, just taking the time. And that claims process starts tomorrow, December 1st, 2019. So, that's all I got to say about it. And again, just click on the link in the description below to get to this website, to see the HEX website, to check out all the details. It is free for Bitcoin holders in the first year. And yeah, don't miss your opportunity. That's all I have to say about it. So thanks. And of course, hey, I'm sometimes in the HEX chat rooms, sometimes not on Telegram. But if you see me there and you have questions about what I'm posting here, by all means ask me. Like, I pop in there to ask questions too. Not often, but sometimes. And yeah, I hope everybody who's interested in HEX takes advantage of the opportunity to check it out. Because again, it's free. Doesn't cost you anything. So that's going to do it for now, folks. Once again, thanks again for listening for so long. If you've been actually listening to this whole stream, you're amazing. I don't know how you've done it, but good on you. I'm guessing there's been some chop in this stream because I know YouTube been pretty choppy with my live streams lately, but hopefully you've heard most of it or all of it, and it made sense. And yeah, I'm going to do it for now. So thanks again for listening, folks, to another episode of Crypto Marketing Insights. I hope this has been beneficial to you, and definitely look forward to seeing you next time on another episode. Till then, have a great day. Have a wonderful day. Whatever you're doing, take care. Enjoy your free HEX. Enjoy your Bitcoin trading. Whatever you're doing today, have a great day. Have a wonderful Saturday, wherever you are on the earth or elsewhere. And until next time, folks, take care.